Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. Jeremy Werner, Joey Wagner. Happy Friday, happy weekend whenever you're listening to this. It's time to wrap up our position previews here on the Illini Inquirer podcast. Gotten to see a little bit of training camp, and let's focus what I think are two of the better position groups on Illinois football's roster. That would be the defensive backs, which of course has been a strength throughout most of Brett Bielema's tenure, sans 2023, and then the special teams unit, which we feel like got upgraded, but a couple good pieces returning from that group as well. Joey Wagner, happy Friday. How are you, buddy?
Happy Friday, man. I'm good. I'm ready to wrap these up, mostly because I've been dying to get to our Sign Guys podcast.
We'll get to that. Our guys coming up into this season. I do want to mention before we dive into this, I did post some things I've been hearing about Illinois basketball workouts on the site. VIP members, take advantage of that. Go check it out. Some good insight on the personnel. If you're not a VIP member, sign up now, 50% off. So we got some buzz from the summer workouts there. But Illinois did officially announce they're returning to Madison Square Garden. This has been reported. They will return to play UConn on Black Friday. So that's going to be a busy sports weekend for us, Joe. We got Illinois, UConn, in Madison Square Garden. Don't know what time that kicks off, Bears fans. So I'm guessing there will be some conflict there. 2 p.m. tip-off or kickoff for the Bears Lions. And then I would imagine this is an afternoon tip-off. I don't think this is going to be late, but maybe I'm speculating too much, Joey.
Wait, Bears Lions is Black Friday?
It's not Bears Lions. Sorry, it's Bears somebody else.
They play on Black Friday.
Yeah, not a good.
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin speculating with the time for Illinois basketball. Like in my brain, UConn East Coast feels like a night like you'd want to prime time that. We'll see. I don't know. Then you got to turn around and
Bears Eagles 2 p.m. kickoff on Black Friday. They're not winning that one anyway, guys. Probably so.
Oh man, the optimism is in full swing for Jeremy.
Caleb's having a good day. Caleb's having a really good day. So that's really good to see. Our wide receiver Roma Dunze is having a good day. I'm going to bring up a tight end that looks pretty good, Joey. I don't know if he's Tucker Kraft good, but Colston Loveland has been looking pretty good. So I got some optimism. I just want to win. I just want to have a winning season. That's a bar I'd like to get.
My quarterback just had thumb surgery, so I'm not going to sit here and hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. No, so we don't know the time. I'm probably speculating too much on that, but I imagine this will be a pretty big game for whatever network is, holding it. I don't think we've seen that so far, but I think the bigger news coming out of this is UConn is officially returning the game to United Center in Chicago in 2026-27, Joey. So to have that game back, to have opponents like UConn and this year Alabama being part of that, fantastic. It was time to bring it back and to get opponents of this level. That's what you wanted. You didn't want, reverting to UIC and New Mexico State. Like these feel like games, and most importantly, Illinois basketball is really nationally relevant again, so the fans will definitely show up for these. So that's great news for Illini fans in the Chicagoland area. And it's great that Brad Underwood is continuing to try and get one of these marquee games back to State Farm Center each year as well.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the home and home or neutral and close neutral, however you want to look at it. I mean, we covered those last games at the United Center, Jeremy. There was not a lot of buzz, right? And Illinois basketball being back, having premier opponents in the house should make that for a much better situation. But this is the Illinois non-conference scheduling model, right? Get some big dogs in there, either go there, bring them to you, get a close neutral, and just go. And I think it's made for a really fun non-conference part of the season. And it just kind of depends on the layouts of the teams. Like last year was a test yourselves against some of these. There should be a little bit more known for this year's roster, but I really like seeing actual non-conference opponents and traveling a little bit or giving, especially Chicagoland and an area to watch good basketball games.
Yeah. And the fact that, let's not overlook, like Texas Tech is doing the home and home with you. You play Alabama, you play Tennessee. Last year you played Duke. You're playing UConn now. You still have Missouri year after year. The fact that these programs want to schedule you is another sign that you're back, and that Brad Underwood has a lot of respect from all these other coaches that are near the top of the game. So the fact that they want to play a team like Illinois says that Illinois is a very respected brand, and why wouldn't it be? But you have that cachet again with other coaches that want to play you. And it speaks to Brad and his relationships in the industry as well.
Yeah, it also speaks to, if you're Rick Barnes, right? If you're going to get better playing Illinois. If you're Dan Hurley, you're going to get better playing Illinois, and you're going to be tested playing Illinois. And Illinois is at a spot, and these other programs are at a spot where whoever loses that game isn't necessarily hurt, right? In terms of the metrics, you're going to have some disappointment, as you would, right? A big primetime showing, and if things go south for whichever team, but big picture, this doesn't hurt at all. And I think Brad Underwood's looking to maximize that. You get that experience, you get those tests, and you don't get hurt come Selection Sunday.
Yeah, let's be honest. The Duke loss was embarrassing last year, but it woke you up. Winning 3 straight games in the regular season woke that team up a little bit. Could have gone the other way. So that was a positive that actually came out of that. And you do get the chance, of course, to atone for 30-0 run in the Elite Eight. So
is that going to be mentioned at all on the broadcast, do you imagine?
I wasn't going to mention it. And I was like, I probably have to mention it. It's kind of the story of Illinois UConn.
Yeah, it's absolutely the story of Illinois UConn. It'll be brought up. And it's Illinois gets a chance to try to atone for that.
The good thing is Donovan Clingan is not at the rim. And hopefully this time, if there is someone like Donovan Clingan at the rim and a couple minutes in, you don't get him in foul trouble, you adjust. And you
perhaps a contingency plan in place, huh?
That was not a great game plan after the first 10 minutes. Did not work. I get it first time, but no, didn't work after that. All right, let's dive into football, Joey. Defensive backs. We mentioned it yesterday on the podcast. We were talking which is the best position group on Illinois. And I think that's going to be a major topic we'll talk about here. But the fact that we're talking about that now is a pretty great sign, because last year it was a kind of a question mark. 2023 was not a good year for the defensive backfield. I mean, you lost all that NFL talent. Matthew Bailey gets hurt in 2023, but that group took a bunch of lumps. I mean, Xavier Scott was the silver lining of 2023, kind of stepping forward. Miles Scott had a pretty good year, but otherwise that was a group that really, really struggled. But that experience really helped pay off last year, right? And then a transfer helped, just happened to be not the one we thought. Terrence Brooks was a bust, but Torrey Cox was a huge hit. And that's why adding him and adding depth like that in the spring is huge. Torrey Cox with 3 interceptions. He was really sticky, we like to say, made it difficult to catch. 21 receptions on 42 targets. That's really good for a DB. And then Caleb Patterson kind of came out of nowhere to become a solid starter. I played, 12 defensive snaps the year prior, had a bad penalty against Iowa in 23, but he really emerged as a solid starter, physical and run support, sound in coverage. He got beat in coverage when he had to go one-on-one, but he didn't give up huge plays. Gave up 29 catches on 47 targets, though, so he's not as sticky. But Xavier Scott became a superstar, right? And he won that Kansas game basically by himself. 2 interceptions, 1 forced fumble in that game alone. He was a semifinalist for the Thorpe Award as one of the best playmakers in the defensive backfield in the country. And Joey, he stayed healthy until the spring when he had his cleanup surgery, and he played 792 snaps. Pretty dang good. So before I dive into the safeties, any thoughts on the cornerbacks, before we dive into what this year, but last year, that group was a major question mark, and Torrey Cox, Caleb Patterson emerging, and Jaheim Clark late in the season took some lumps, but he played pretty well down the stretch.
Yeah, I think Jaheim Clark was a really big storyline in the month of November and into that bowl game, just the way that he played and what you think he can be this year, Jeremy. I know we'll dive into that. But you nailed it when talking about Torrey Cox, the value of depth transfers, and with Caleb Patterson, the value of patience, right? I mean, he had the Iowa moment in 2023. He really was put out there. I think it was his first snap all season, and he just got beat for a touchdown. That was tough, right? And he stuck with it. And was he a perfect cornerback? No. Was he an all Big Ten cornerback? No. But because he and Torrey Cox played as well as they did, you could afford the Terrence Brooks bust to happen, right? You would have been in real dire straits if Terrence Brooks didn't turn out how you thought he was going to. You didn't get Torrey Cox, and you moved on from Caleb Patterson. Then where do you go? It also allowed Xavier Scott to stay at nickel.
Yeah,
because he is a guy who could have bounced outside, and I still think he can do that if the matchups call for it. But he is a star in the star, right? And I think being able to keep him there because of how Cox played, because of how Patterson played, because of how Clark played late in the season, especially when Patterson missed time with an injury, that was really, really meaningful. So that group, not the flashiest group, right? Like the stats aren't crazy. There's not all Big Ten performances, save for Xavier Scott at nickel. We talk about him like a safety because that's really where he is. But a group that really they evaluated well and they got the job done to overcome. Really, in a lot of ways, Illinois in the past probably wouldn't have been able to overcome Terrence Brooks not being what you thought he was going to be.
Yeah, and my takeaway from that is good on the staff for not doubling down on a big investment you made, right, with your financial resources, and one of the most talented players you had in the secondary, but he just wasn't reliable enough in practice. All those things, you put him in games, he just wasn't as reliable and didn't earn the job as much as these other players. And Terrence Brooks is out of football right now. He did not go anywhere else for another year of eligibility, so just didn't work out for whatever reason. And sometimes in the transfer portal, when you want these highly rated guys, there's a reason some of them are available. And that ended up being the case with Terrence Brooks. And they didn't just say, hey, we paid this guy a lot. He's really good. Got to do it. No, Torrey Cox is better. Caleb Patterson's better. So that was kind of my takeaway of that. Is they, kind of still went with what they want. And I think that's really important that they just didn't hand a guy who didn't earn it, even if he was a big addition. So that's kind of my takeaway from the Terrence Brooks ordeal. And
here's the thing. We don't, like, someone's listening to this. Well, why didn't it work? I don't know the full details of why it didn't work. I think what you mentioned, reliability wasn't there in practice. How do you put someone who's not delivering in practice in games? Kind of what we talked about at other positions. So if you're wondering, well, why didn't I don't know that you and I have that.
I don't have the
surefire
answer. And you don't want to get personal about anything, but he just wasn't reliable. Like he just wasn't trustworthy in the secondary compared to these other guys, and they made the right call there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just didn't want someone to listen to that and think, well, why? I don't know. There's some things that we don't know, and I don't know, but I know that Torrey Cox helped get through that. That Caleb Patterson helped kind of overcome that.
Jaheim Clark as well. All right, at safety, Miles Scott, solid, really good in coverage, rarely gets beat deep, had 2 interceptions. His tackling at times can be an issue. He's not the fastest dude, so he's got to take angles. So when he doesn't take the right angle, that can hurt. Matt Krasevich came in, looked like he could start. At Michigan State game, he was really, really good. But the star of the safety group was Matthew Bailey. Just became a star late in the season. We thought he could be really good in 2023, and unfortunately, first play he comes in against Penn State, he hurts that shoulder, and then he looked good, Joey, for like 2 drives, and you're like, wow, what a difference he makes. And then that shoulder just ended up giving out, and he had to have surgery on it. But last year, he led the team in tackles, 93, and he was good the first half of the season. He was great the final stretch of the season. Final 7 games, Joey, he had 56 tackles, 4 pass breakups, 1 pick, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery, and he allowed just 14 receptions for 115 yards and 1 touchdown. That included back-to-back games against Colston Loveland and Sadiq Bey. 2 of the most talented tight ends in the country. Of course, Loveland, number 10 pick of the Bears, and Sadiq Bey projected as a first-round pick this year. Just a freak from Oregon. But during the final 5 games, Joey, when he wasn't playing those 2, he allowed just 7 receptions on 17 targets for 9 yards. Pretty good.
Seems pretty good. I also went through earlier in our position previews or position primers that we did on the website. PFF will break down the individual matchups. I think that is something we need to talk about because we've seen tight ends abuse Illinois, right, in the past. Sidney Brown was really good against those guys. Tyler Warren, 1 reception, 2 targets, 7 yards. Also, Tyler Warren is very, very good at football. Max Clare had a big day. He had 3 receptions on 3 targets for 109 yards. He is at Ohio State now. He's no longer at Purdue.
Likely a second-round pick next year.
Yeah. Colston Loveland, 1 reception, 3 targets, 29 yards. Sadiq Bey. Kenyon Sadiq, 2 receptions, 2 targets, 28 yards against Oregon.
Sadiq Bey. I'm saying Sadiq Bey. He's a basketball player.
It went over my head. But man, I'm telling you, like early on, I talked to Matthew Bailey about this in the spring, and we're going to spend a little time on talking about him because I think he's someone who's earned a lot of conversation. We expected 2023 Matt Bailey coming back off his foot injury from the winter to just be Sidney Brown. right? That's what, like, that was the buzz. That was all of the Sid 2.0. He follows him around. They speak similarly in terms of pacing and how they use words. Like, there's so much overlap there. I've messed it up twice in a day or earlier this training camp, right? We also had to, then he gets hurt and it all is kind of put on pause. So last offseason, it's like, man, they need Sydney or they need Matthew Bailey to get back to that level. And it takes time. Like Sidney Brown got really good because Sidney Brown had experience where he wasn't always really good. And Matthew Bailey had to have those moments where he had to learn how to grow and he had to learn all the nuances and the communication, especially with those three safeties, which we include Xavier Scott in that. He had to learn all of those things. So it's a reminder that, like, he's really talented. He's going to have an NFL decision to make after this season, but he also had to take time and struggle a little bit. And then you saw that all click in just an absolutely massive way down the stretch of the season. And he was one of their three best defensive players by the end of the season. The other two, by the way, Gabe Akis, Xavier Scott. I mean, he was awesome.
Guess how many plays he didn't play on defense last year? What's that guess?
Oh, I have it pulled up. Well, he played 876 snaps, so I can't imagine it's more than like 30.
40. It was 40 that he was actually off the field on defense. Oh, and he played 50 special team snaps as well. He doesn't come off the field. He's a different player than Sidney. Sidney's a way more explosive athlete, just vertically. I think he's faster. Matthew Bailey's built more like a linebacker, right? Like, so I think he's actually better as a matchup guy against these tight ends in the Big Ten. And what a position that's been. And Illinois has struggled for years covering that position, right? I mean, you mentioned Max Clare last year. They really struggled to cover him, but he just gives them some length, some size. He's all over the field as a run defender. So it's almost like he's the second linebacker half the time because Illinois is in their nickel package half the time and only have one linebacker. And, you know, it could be his position at the next level, right? It wouldn't surprise me if he played, you know, hybrid safety linebacker like Cam Chancellor at the next level. But that's the type of player he is. Sidney Brown's like 5'11", obviously built extremely well, but just a freak athlete. And, you know, obviously really, really physical player as well. But they are different, but they carry themselves similarly. And Matt learned a lot from Sidney. They both speak very similarly, but they're both kind of that presence. And I think Matthew Bailey's next step, Joey, is all those pass breakups he had 7 of them, getting more of those picks. But you talk about playmakers. This is one of the best playmakers, I think, in the Big Ten that's returning.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Remember Sidney Brown's final stretch of 2022, he forced turnovers like crazy. So I think that is the next step for Matt Bailey. I also think it's more that pre-snap confusion. I hate just like it's so lazy. I know I feel it to just continually go back to Sidney Brown, but he was really good at making the quarterback think one thing and doing something totally different. And you saw flashes of that at times with Matt Bailey. Some of that pre-snap, like, it looks random, right? And I've talked to Matt about this. It looks really random out there where he's just kind of bouncing here or there pre-snap, but it all serves a purpose. So just continuing to do that, develop that, confuse the quarterback, and see if you can get your hands on a football that way as well. It's a really good player and a hell of an evaluation and find by this coaching staff and sticking with him. Brett Bielema shared a really cool story about him on Wednesday. Sidney Brown didn't run very well. Matthew Bailey did not run very well at his workout. He was coming off however many track meets or baseball games or basketball games. And Brett called him that night and said, hey, just, you know, kind of gave him some words of encouragement. And they ended up going to see him play basketball. They liked him a lot. And he's been just an exceptional find for Illinois.
Yeah, Matthew Bailey, no other Power 4 offers. Xavier Scott had like one, but Pittsburgh really wasn't pushing for him at the time. And Gabe Akis was a Tulane commit at one point. Like, that's the first recruiting class. Those are the 3 guys that have just obviously stood out. Just on the whole, this group just took a huge step. 12 interceptions, up from 7 the year before. I think it's a phenomenal group against the run, Joey. These are all pretty good run defenders that play with physicality and really a great job of anticipation, which speaks to the coaching as well. They gave up some yards in the pass game, but they kept things in front of them. That's a really sound group. Played a lot more zone coverage last year because you don't have Devin Witherspoon, Quan Martin, Sidney Brown. These guys are freak athletes that are obviously really good in coverage, but they kept teams having to go long drives. You think of the Penn State game. You stayed in that game because you didn't give up big chunks and big plays for the most part. And during the entire season, Illinois allowed just 10 passing plays of 30 plus yards. That's top 10 in the country. So the more plays an offense has to go, Joey, the more mistakes they can make that can interrupt the drive, can end a drive, send a drive back with a penalty, obviously turnovers, all those things. So that was kind of what they did last year, and they did it really well.
Yeah, it's what that defense was. Now, the talk this offseason has been, yes, you keep everything in front, you're going to give up some, but now make more plays on the football. That mayhem belt that we heard all about last year, drive that home even further. And that's what the next step of the secondary is, Jeremy, is yes, you are not getting beat. The defense is designed so you don't get beat over the top often. It's always going to happen. It's football. Someone's going to get beat, but it's designed to keep things in front. Now it's force those game-changing plays. Take the ball away, get the ball back to pretty freaking good quarterback and Luke Altmaier in that offense.
The good thing is you don't play against an Oregon, which was like the worst matchup for this group, right? Just because of the speed that they have. Like
that was absurd. Yeah. Like that. Illinois did not look outmatched in any game other than that Oregon game. Just the way that screen and go. I mean, it was crazy what that Oregon offense did last year, which, to be honest, given a 13-game body of work, tells me more about Oregon than it did about Illinois. But that matchup was brutal.
They do have 3 big tests, I think, before the month of November is here, though. And that's Indiana. That offense is really explosive. USC's got athletes. Jacoby Lane's a hell of a player, really fast. And, of course, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Ohio State's group of wideouts coming into town in October. But that'll be a fun matchup to see how the secondary does against them. But let's get into our first question, Joey. Is this the best position group on the team?
I'm going to defer. I think the answer is yes, top to bottom. I just am a big believer that when your quarterback's as good as Illinois' quarterback is, and I think Ethan Hampton is a good enough backup that really deserves to be put in that conversation. And as you talk about Carson Boyd, Trey Petty down the line, young quarterbacks who are Jershawn Newton, who are intriguing, but they play 5 DBs at a time most of the time, and those 5 are good. I'm going to defer to you because I think I know your answer to this.
Well, I think there's a couple of groups that have the case for this, right? But I kind of think of 4 different areas. Do you have NFL talent at the position? Xavier Scott and Matthew Bailey are undoubtedly NFL talent. And the way Illinois is starting to talk about Bailey is how they talked about Gabe Akers last year. Like
how they talked about Johnny Newton in 2022.
I don't know if they're expecting another year out of Matt. I think they'd love it. I think they'd love to pay Matt a lot of money to come back in 2026 and anchor that defense. But I just don't know if they're expecting it at this point. So those are 2 guys that certainly are NFL caliber talents, and maybe some other guys emerge as this goes along, but not a lot of position groups, undoubtedly have NFL talent, right? For Illinois, quarterback, offensive line, outside linebacker, right? Maybe running back does, but I don't know if we know that yet.
At least one defensive lineman in James Thompson, but I don't know that you would go. That's right. Yeah. But I mean, he's got I just don't know how many other right now you would say that about the defensive line. He is unquestionably. Yeah.
I just think he's still got to show that in a year. I think he's going to be it, but I still think he's got to prove it a little bit more. So for me, DB, outside linebacker, offensive line, quarterback would kind of be those groups. Backups who could be starters. Do you have that at your position? I think we undoubtedly have that at defensive back, whether it's Jaheim Clark or Torrey Cox. One of those guys is not going to start, and one of those guys is very capable of starting. Jaheim Clark, I think, is really a guy that I think can break out this year, getting that experience, kind of like a lot of this group did in 23. Him getting that late last year, he showed market improvement from game 1 to game 12, 13, and played a big role. And Matt Grossetich, man, when he came into that Michigan State game, he looked pretty good, to the point where you and I are like, they got to find more reps for him because he makes plays on the ball. He's a really sound tackler. I think he's a better athlete than Miles Scott. But Miles Scott's deserving of the starting spot. He's a team captain, all of that. So this is a good problem to have, but he is definitely capable of starting. And I think Sabor Kareem could probably come in and play pretty well for you in if 2 safeties went down, because Miles Scott would probably take Matthew Bailey's spot. Matt Grossetich will back up Miles Scott if that's the case. But I think Sabor Kareem's a good talent too. So I think they have both those checked off, right? Like how many positions do you feel like you have multiple backups that could be starters? I don't think that of
Well,
quarterback.
no, no, I don't either. Wide receiver may end up that way at the end, but they haven't proven it where you could say that right now.
And they don't have the proven NFL talent of these others.
Correct.
So I'm just kind of whittling away at these positions. Offensive line, do we think Desmond Schuster and Aiden Knappich, I don't know yet, right? Brandon
I like
Hanson,
the
I don't
idea.
know yet. Outside linebacker probably does, right? Alec Bryant, Leon Lowry. You know those guys can at least be serviceable starters. Joe Barna, I feel like potentially could be.
Yeah, I think that's right. But again, then you talk about the other criteria you put on, and defensive back is kind of standing alone to this point right now.
Then you look at long-term talent. Do you have guys that you're excited about? And while some of these guys weren't the biggest recruits, the way the staff talks about them, what you hear is really enticing. Tanner Heckel being one of those, sophomore, could be that nickel behind Xavier Scott this year. RJ Jones had a really good spring in his first semester. They're really excited about Tywan Cox, Zanai Scott, Andre Lovett, and then you got Nick Higgins and Jacob Eberhardt coming in eventually. So that one's a little bit more unknown, Joey, but you kind of trust that this staff will get there. And that's the last part here. Do you have great development at the position because of your coaches? And that's a strength here. Aaron Henry and Corey Parker are really good at what they do.
Yeah, which is why you can see a guy who maybe didn't have a loaded list of Power 4 offers, why you believe that they will develop them. It's kind of a little bit of how you feel about the defensive line.
Yep.
But they've got a really good track record back there. So I think you have just unquestionably proven it's the best position group.
Yeah, that's my case. Because there's other positions that can check this off, like great development. I put Terrence Jamison at the top of that list, right? I mean, what Barry Lunny has done with quarterbacks has been really impressive. Justin Stepp has a really good development history. And I'm missing other guys like Archie McDaniel. I thought was really good. I got to see it longer, but he did a really good job. Long-term talent. There's other positions. I think quarterback, running back, really good at that.
Linebacker.
Yeah, but not checking all four. I feel like defensive back, I don't even have to think about it. Yes. Those are all good.
Yeah, and you figure between all those and your top end talent there, right? I mean, the NFL talent that you mentioned. All right, I'll buy in.
All right. Any of those guys you want to talk about? I know you're big on Resetich. I think we hit on him though.
Yeah, I just he's probably the most interesting defensive back right now, right? Because like what you're getting out of the starters, but I think for Resetich, especially with Bailey's ability to kind of be here and there, he is their dime safety. I just really want to know how many reps he's going to end up getting because I think he's been out there. The snaps you've seen him out there, it's like, okay, this kid can play. This kid can play football. And he said, he goes, I'm behind. He told me, he said, I'm behind 2 NFL guys. And he definitely won. And we'll see. I mean, I'm sure Miles Scott will find his way into a camp somewhere, right? It's obviously everybody wants to play. You don't get to this level by being like, hey, if I start, I start. But yeah, he does understand the bigger picture. He believes in the development, but I think there has to be a role for him somewhere this season because I think he's one of your best defensive backs, and I think he's a guy who can go out there and make an impact. And his ability to make plays on the ball has shown to be really impressive.
I don't want Matthew Bailey coming off the field if he doesn't have to. But what would you like Resetich to be at? 300? He was at 170 last year, something like that.
I think that's right. Now, how do you do that? I don't know. Do you move Matthew Bailey to play him a little bit in the box? Do you give a 3 safety look at times that's beyond the dime package? Do you get creative in that way? I don't know. But I think if you can find 300 snaps for Mac Resetich, your football team is going to be better off for it.
At the very least, phenomenal depth because you stayed healthy at safety last year. If you don't, to have Mac Resetich, and I would even say I think Sabor Kareem is at least a serviceable backup. So to have him, and he's kind of following the same thing with Mac. It's a guy that might transfer. Like you wouldn't blame him if he transferred right before this year. And he said, I see what's in front of me. I know the development. I know I can play. So you're just kind of waiting your turn. And as long as they keep preparing like starters and learning from the guys in front of them, that's what you want, man. And it's amazing the retention of keeping guys like that who could go elsewhere, whether it's Elzy waiting 2 years, Kareem waiting 2 years, Resetich waiting 2 years. To get those guys back that retention is mind-blowing to me because a lot of schools aren't able to do that. All right, cornerback. How do you see that rotation shaking out? Because it does feel like you have 3 starters at this position, Joey.
It does feel like you have 3 starters. That might be matchup dependent, right? Do you need someone who's a little more sticky, like a Torrey Cox, to stay with whoever that receiver is? Do you need to go a little bit bigger with Caleb Patterson, Jaheim Clark? Does Jaheim Clark? I think I know where you're going, so please.
When Ohio State comes to town and Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are lining up 2 monster receivers that are freak athletes, I think it's going to be Jaheim Clark and Caleb Patterson going up against them, right? Like, I don't think Torrey Cox, I don't know how much he's going to be playing against those guys.
Does Jaheim Clark get starter? Is he a starter before that game?
Yeah, I think week 1. I think he's a starter.
All right. That's kind of a bold prediction.
Because Torrey Cox is really, really good. They're all going to play. It's kind of like the outside linebacker conversation we had. These guys are all going to play significant snaps, whether it's 300 plus each or 400 plus each. This is a real good luxury to have 3 starters that like this, plus Xavier Scott, who can play cornerback as well. That's where I feel so good about this position. But Jaheim just gives him kind of the in-between. Torrey's, he's listed at 5'9". Closer to 5'7", Joey, you think?
I have never been the best gauge of like just the eye test, but
I am 5'9".
Might be a
I am
stretch.
not looking eye to eye with Torrey.
Yeah, it might be a stretch.
Yeah. But he is unbelievably fast. And as his brother told me the other day, he plays like he's 6'8". I mean, that Nebraska play was insane. He's just got, so much experience. He's kind of a dog. He does pack a little bit of a punch in the run game, but just he can stay on somebody's hip so well. Like Caleb just can't do it because he's so big. Jaheim's kind of that in between. He's got the length. He's got the physicality. I loved him as a high school prospect because he just had that Devin Witherspoon, just Florida mentality of, can read plays, react, and just go and hit with ferocity. So he's got that to him. But he also is a little bit quicker, I think, than Caleb Patterson. So I just think he's kind of what you want overall. But Caleb, man, he's so good against the run. He's really sound. He's physical. He can really get into people. But he's just not – he's going to give up some space. Like, people are going to get away from him at times.
Yeah, you probably don't want him in press, right? Like, just he's better off giving a little bit of space off the line and reacting from there. Yeah, and look, here's the thing. We say this is also going to be lineups where it's Jaheim Clark and it's Torrey Cox. Like, those 3 guys are going to – they were interchangeable down the stretch of last season where Jaheim Clark – Caleb Patterson missing a little bit of time, but Jaheim Clark was playing starter reps. So those are the 3 main guys. The conversation we've had, and we spend a lot of time, whether it be on here or writing or between you and I discussing, is who's that 4th guy? Because you need depth at corner, right? Like, that is a position where you are going to have to get into your depth. That's just a fact of how this goes. Is that one of the freshmen, Jeremy? Is that or redshirt freshman in the case of Amar Reynolds? I mean, I think Amar would be the guy that I look to right now, but RJ Jones intrigues the heck out of me. Is it Donovan Turner, a transfer, a JUCO transfer? I don't know, but I think the conversation for 4th is probably between one of those 3 at this moment.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Or Xavier Scott, right? I mean,
yeah, that's probably right. It depends on who steps up in that star position. So let's talk about that. Who is an upperclassman who could emerge as the season progressed? You mentioned RJ Jones, Amar Reynolds. I think Amar Reynolds is a name for Illini fans to know that if he goes out there, do not be surprised. I know Vernon Woodward was the higher rated recruit. And to be honest with you, I loved him as a recruit. Seems like he's gotten passed up by some of these guys, including RJ Jones and Amar Reynolds in this rotation. And, Amar's really long, kind of, it looks like he's bigger, had more size coming into him than Jaheim Clark did. But the other guy's Tanner Heckel, right? I mean, we heard so much about him in the spring, and now that they're playing him, they've played him everywhere. Free safety when he got here. Then he played corner during the spring, and now he's playing more the nickel. They clearly love his athleticism. He's a freak athlete. Aaron Henry loves to bring up he's a white corner, and people might think he's one thing, but he's really intriguing as an athlete. It's just he hasn't played much at this position. They clearly like what he brings to the field from the athletic trait standpoint.
Yeah, he would be, talk about an underclassman who could emerge. It would probably be him because I think for a number of one, they love him, right? And I think going into nickel probably fits him better than being outside, but also because of the guy in front of him. And that is Xavier Scott. If you need to move Xavier Scott outside, whether that's an injury, whether that's a matchup, Tanner Heckel's a guy who would just slot in to that star spot, you would think, right? Unless it's Torrey Cox, but I think the answer would be Heckel. He's competing right now primarily from what we saw with Tyler Strain as the backup star. I just think that the versatility of Xavier, the way they talk about Tanner Heckel, he would be the guy that comes front of mind for me as that underclassman. Amar Reynolds could be that guy as well. A year in the system, really has been around a little bit. Those are the two. I think now this conversation is probably entirely different a year from now, right? But for right now, I'd have to lean towards one of those two. I think RJ Jones is hard to be a freshman,
Yeah.
right? We'll see, especially with Illinois wanting to be where it wants to be. Amar Reynolds, he's probably the fourth corner, I would think, and Tanner Heckel.
Tywan Cox is really intriguing. That speed, man.
He is, yeah.
That speed.
Another guy who's in that nickel mix, as far as we know.
He told me he was playing corner. We've heard he'd been playing a little bit of nickel, but he said he did do that a little bit. He's been playing more corner recently. But again, he just got here in the summer. Zanai Scott's intriguing. He's different than his brother. He's a stout kid, but really good athlete. He did say Xavier's got a little bit more quickness to him, but he's been playing that boundary safety position. Those are two really intriguing additions. But to your point, Joey, I think 2026, those are probably more interesting guys than 2025. But those feel like obviously the two of the five brother pairings, but those feel like two under the radar names that could be the next that overshoot their rankings and recruiting pedigree in the secondary.
Yeah, and I do think we've seen historically one freshman DB will be on special teams. So pick one of those three. I don't know which one, but I have a gut feeling that one of those three is going to be in a special teams role.
Yeah, I think one of Ty Cox or Zanai Scott, and maybe both of them don't redshirt, right? Just so they can get that experience, be on the field, because that really helps them gear up for more playing time down the line. I do want to mention, is the X factor of this group Tyler Strain, fifth-year senior? I don't know where he's going to play. I don't know where he's at on the depth chart, whether it's nickel, corner. He can play both. He has played both. He's been on the team, but he entered the transfer portal. He comes back. I don't think he's obviously in any of the starting conversations, but he is trying to feels like he's trying to hold off these young guys for some of the two deep spots too. So just an intriguing player. We haven't really mentioned all that much that eventually you can put him on the field and feel like you can compete. At least he's done it before.
Yeah, he's done it before. A guy who can play nickel, a guy who can play outside. He is a large young man. I mean, he is
pound for pound. Pretty
strong. He's strong as heck. Yeah, just worth mentioning because I don't know how he fits in all of this. And here's the thing: maybe he does hold off Heckel. Maybe he does hold off one of the freshmen or Amar Reynolds. Maybe it was him that we're like, oh, yeah, he's a guy who, yeah, of course, he's been around for a while. He knows the system. I'm glad you mentioned him. I don't know how or where he fits right now, but he is a name to know because one, he's played a good amount of snaps at Illinois, right? And he's had moments, and everyone thinks back to that play in the end zone. He's had moments where it's gone the other way, but I'm glad you brought him up because I think he could be a guy you see a little bit.
Yeah. All right, let's go to special teams where they were pretty good in certain areas last year, right? David Olano takes over field goal kicking duties, 17 of 20 from field goal. Really good year for him. Even got out to 50 yards. So he obviously is returning as one of the better kickers in the Big Ten. We'll talk a little bit more about him. Ethan Machowski hit a 59-yarder against Central Michigan to tie the school record. So their kicking game was pretty good. Machowski got really inconsistent as a kickoff guy late in the season. He's now transferred to Washington. And so we'll see him in October. But punt return game, awesome. Hank Beatty didn't even start the season there. Remember, Matt Krasetich muffed a punt. Hank Beatty takes over and becomes a game changer, especially late in the season, Joe. It felt like he was breaking one per game over 20 yards, led the Big Ten in punt return average. I thought he had a chance to be the returner of the year. The kid from Iowa deserved it, but Beatty was awesome in that regard. So to find a role, and that obviously translated him at receiver, and I think that's been a huge change in his career, is getting him in here at punt return. Kick return, Kenari Wilcher didn't really make a huge impact. Illinois doesn't return very many kicks. But punter, after a couple good weeks by Hugh Robertson, it was a huge issue the rest of the year, and Illinois was able to overcome it. But inconsistency that we saw in 2022 kind of reared its ugly head. Again, you just couldn't count on him. And he eventually got benched, and,
Fabrizio Penton comes in, gets hurt. Hugh Robertson comes back.
It's kind of insane thing, and Hugh had some good moments in there, but punter was one of the worst things Illinois had last year. They're 100th in the country in punting, last in the Big Ten. So this is certainly an area they needed to improve, and they went out and improved it by getting Keelan Crimmins from Purdue, another Australian punter, 1 year of eligibility. They're hoping to get 2 out of him, so we'll see if they can do that. But how significant is the addition of Keelan Crimmins at punter, Joey?
Yeah, it's really significant because punter has been one of the main issues for Illinois the last couple of years since Blake Hayes left. The stats are not pretty for Hugh Robertson from last year. It really tapered after the Michigan game, where he didn't average 40 yards a punt a single time in the final 1, 2, 3, 4 games of the season. Early on, it wasn't as bad as the stats ended up being, but then that inconsistency, which has been a story with Hugh Robertson since he took over that starting job. Keelan Crimmins is really good. Go ahead.
I just thought Robertson was pretty solid in 23. I thought he was consistent, but didn't have the biggest leg, but it just felt like he was solid, and to kind of see him backslide was pretty jarring after the first part of the season.
It was. Crimmins has a big leg. He's good with hang time, and that might not sound like the sexiest stat, right, for someone listening, but it gets your coverage. Yeah. Or gets your coverage unit going. I just want to put this in context if I could, Jeremy. Keelan Crimmins last year at Purdue, where he punted every 4 seconds, he averaged 44.9 yards per punt. So for context, that would have been the 3rd best all-time single season in Illinois football history behind Steve Weatherford and Blake Hayes. 3rd best. Like, that is the kind of punter Illinois went out and added. So, and he's been pretty consistent, Keelan Crimmins, in his time. So that's just a really big addition, an addition that didn't get a lot of headlines, right? Because it's a punter, but he has been really, really good. He's a proven Big Ten punter. He's been around the elements, and again, not everywhere has to deal with those, but you do in the Big Ten, and you do at Memorial Stadium, and he's got some experience in that department. It's just a really, really solid addition.
Yeah, I mean, he had 64 total punts last year, 17 downed inside the 20, 14 of 50 yards or more. I think Hugh had 3 of 50 or more last year.
That's correct, yeah.
Hang time, it matters. Not just a good show that Dick Butkus was on NBC. 3.87 seconds per punt of hang time for Keelan Crimmins. That was tied for 66 nationally. But more importantly, Robertson was one of the worst in the country, 3.59 seconds. So 0.3 seconds is an eternity on punt. And you're allowing more time for your coverage guys, whether that's Tanner Heckel or Mac Rosetich, Mario Sanders, whoever it is, to get down there, swarm the punt returner, and either, make him fair catch it, Joey, or scare him into just letting the ball go. And think of all those lost yards that you can have just by not allowing a guy to catch it or making him fair catch it. Like, those are huge yards in a game that can really add up in a season.
Hidden yards. You saw Illinois at times on the wrong end of those hidden yards. Isaiah Williams was part of that, right? For as great as he was at Illinois and as a total football player, you lost some hidden yards with him on punts and punt returns.
Unbelievable, right? Like, I mean, he caught in traffic and then would take it somewhere too. Like, Beatty was awesome last year. Punt return.
Did you see that coming? Obviously the stats he put up were I don't know that we would have projected that out of Hank Beatty, but for a guy who, to be honest, Jeremy, at times before he took over that job, he was not didn't carry himself as the most confident dude, right? Like he'd catch it, he'd pause. And
Which
then
was
all
a
of this,
concern, right? And that was a
yeah,
concern in training camp. Like we thought he would win that job in training camp because it's like, what does your backup slot do? Right? He should probably be a punt returner. And he had quickness and he had hands. But his first couple years, like we always heard Mr. Reliable Hank Beatty, every time he came into a game, felt like he dropped it or, just didn't make the catch. And so, yeah, when he went back there and all of a sudden becomes this fearless, consistent guy, that was a little bit of a surprise for me. But I think it's just a game changer for his career because it's translated to wide receiver, giving him so much more confidence. Punt return is the toughest job in football to me. Just all these guys screaming, coming down at you. That is one of the toughest. Like, I just mean tough mentally to be able to focus on that. It's got to have balls to do it, man. And Hank Beatty showed that he had that last year. And then to be able to make the plays he does after all of them shows that he's a really good athlete and really tough to corral too. So no, I did not see it coming, Joey. There's a reason Matt Krasevich started the season at that job and he fumbled one of the first ones he did and it changed the game. So yeah, Mac was pretty lucky that the Kansas game turned out a little differently.
yeah, that punt return has really come a long way from, and this isn't an insult towards Caleb Griffin, but from putting a kicker. Look, he did it, right? Like, shout out to Caleb Griffin for actually doing it. He was a good athlete, especially for a kicker. But that now that you have some ability to be dynamic in the punt return game, you saw it flip the field for Illinois a couple times, and I think Hank Beatty's still got some growth there for him, right? And he's a guy who can still house one. He's a guy who can still flip the field even further and do it early on in the season.
All right, David Olano was an All-American in high school, and he showed why last year. 17 of 20 on field goals, came up with some clutch kicks for them. Just a lot of confidence in David Olano. Obviously, he's not perfect. So what are some areas that you think David Olano can improve, Joey?
It's consistency, right? I need to pull up his stats. I'm sure you got them.
I think the biggest thing for him is showing he does have the big leg, right? He does. And I got to be honest with you. I sat down next to him in the locker room at media day. Our boy's filling out. Like, I mean, this was a skinny kid coming in, like 155, 160 pounds. I know they listed him at like 165 as a freshman. They list him at 180 now. He looks like he's like 185, 190. He's starting to look like a man and filling out in the strength department. So, Bielema said the other day he made one from 60 yards, could have been 70. He's always had a big leg despite him being smaller in stature. And now I just think Ethan Machowski, who is Legatron, as David liked to call him, the fact that he's not in that room, I think is good. So he's been good when we've seen him in the spring. Lucas Asada, who they brought from North Carolina, has looked pretty good from when we've seen him too. So he's getting a little competition, but I just think it's really just adding the distance that show he can do that. And then winning the kickoff job. It's a job he had as a freshman. And David Olano, remember, famously said, I don't need a redshirt year. I don't need to get to the NFL, basically. He's got his eyes in the NFL, and he should. He's talented enough to do it. So what do you got to do in the NFL? You got to do everything. You got to do everything well. So kickoffs, he started to struggle a little bit in his first season when he was doing it, and now he's got to show the leg to hit from distance. Like these guys are hitting from 55, 60 yards in the NFL. It's just rounding out that game. Otherwise, I think he's really good. I think he's one of the better kickers in the Big Ten and in the country.
Yeah, I should have amended consistency from deep because inside 40, he was 40, he was perfect. He was 12 of 12. He was 4 of 6 on 40 to 49, 1 of 2 on 50s. We knew he had a big leg. Like that was kind of the running joke. Like, oh, this guy's not a big person, but he has a really, really big leg. And then they trot out Machowski to kick some of those uber long ones. Like, oh, wait a minute here. I thought that was like kind of his thing. So consistency from deep, not necessarily. I mean, obviously, you always want to expand your range, right? But just be able to make a 49 and closer feel like it's like, okay, this is automatic for David Olano. Then see if you can boot in 1 of 50 plus or 2 of 50 plus. But otherwise, he's really, really good. Kickoff, I'm glad you mentioned because that was down the stretch of last season. Inconsistent for Illinois. They brought in Lucas Osada. Is that correct?
Olano said Disher said Osada the other day. I haven't gotten the official pronunciation on him yet.
We got some Tony B here. They bring in Lucas O.
Yeah.
From North Carolina. It's competition, right? And I think David Olano, you talked to him, would like to win that kickoff job and do it all for Illinois. But yeah, just make some of those 40 pluses feel like that dude, like the James McCourt feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Felt like James was better at those than sometimes in the
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
40 yards. Yeah, he's really, really good. I think Phil Steele had him at number 6 draft eligible kickers for David Olano. So the expectation and the pedigree is really, really strong here. By the way, shout out Ethan Machowski. The threat of him made Greg Schiano call a timeout and give Illinois the chance to give Pat Bryant and Luke Altmaier the chance to make that throw, which Pat Bryant deserves all the flowers for that. Go back and watch it. Luke Altmaier takes absolute shot and just didn't care and gave his guy a chance. And then one of the worst angles you'll ever see from a Rutgers DB, but they took it.
Many of the Rutgers defensive backs. Yeah, that if I remember, they actually Machowski got that kick in the air.
Yeah,
it just didn't, and it wasn't even not close. It was not close at all. No. Yeah, and that I think at that point it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you just got to see if your quarterback and receiver can make something happen here.
We have Luke Altmaier and Pat Bryant. Let's try that. All right, last one. Who will be the Illini's kick returner? And most importantly, Joey, doesn't matter.
Can we start with doesn't matter? Because I don't know that it matters, to be honest with you.
How many kickoffs did they take last year? Kick returns, was it 13, 14?
14 last season. So under Brett Bielema, the Illini averaged 1.2 kick returns per game. So it's 14 last season, 25 in 2023, which feels like so many, and ultimately kind of did not work well if you watch the Northwestern game back. Yeah. 18 in 2022, 3 in 2021. I asked Brett Bielema about it. He said, in short, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, get the ball at the 25. You can get the ball at the 25.
He's basically saying the metrics say if you take it at the 25 rather than inside the 20, the percentage difference of getting in the end zone is incredibly different. So talking with his coaches, they always usually prefer just to take it. But he said if they have a certain play, lined up, maybe if they have the right guy back there at kick returner too, then maybe you do something different. So it'd be interesting to see who that guy is. Can I say my statement? I just put Hank Beatty back there.
If he's back there, he's got a legit run at kick returner of the year. He is a top 3 because the Iowa kid's back, so he's a top 3 candidate at worst for that job.
I trust him. I know he can make plays. There's some other interesting guys here: Khalil Valentine, Mario Sanders, Matt Grusevich. But
Sean Griffin.
Yeah, Hank Beatty's Braden Trimble is a really good one to mention in there. But Hank Beatty, his NFL career will be a returner and a backup slot guy, right? When he first if he wants to get in the NFL. And I think he's going to be an NFL camp. That's his path. So one, I'd like to get him the ball there for him, but also, if he's not a 500 snap guy on offense, which I don't know if he is because the blocking aspect of it, I'd like to get him the ball in his hands a little bit more. And this might be the way to do it. And I trust him to make the right decisions because he does on punt return. So that's my case. I think it should be Hank Beatty, but I think Khalil Valentine is definitely in the running. Mario Sanders is a name we've heard. And I do like bringing up Braden Trimble because he's been back there a lot.
Yeah, I'm not going to hate that being Hank Beatty if that's where it goes. Because I do think he's shown enough that's I would trust him to be back there and to make really the right decision, right? Is this something I can return to get to the 26? Yeah. If not, to just wave to everybody, thank him for coming to get the offense back out there. So I wouldn't hate that. I'm trying to find.
And I do want to mention Hank Beatty was the other guy, right? On kick return last year. They have 2 guys who are deep. He was the guy that was just slightly forward from Kanari Wilcher last year.
That's right. Let me find.
Aiden Lawfrey we should mention in this group too, but I'd rather Aiden Lawfrey not take
it. Yeah, that's the thing. I wonder with this, can I ask Hank Beatty, so what's the difference, right? When you're punt returning and kick returning, punt returning is just an absurdly crazy job. It's just absolutely no thank you.
Do it, yeah.
Kick returning, you do want some of that speed. So there are guys who are faster than Hank Beatty, but I just trust that dude to make the right choices back there. We
Yeah,
were trying to come. Go ahead.
punt return is more just you got to be able to make that first move and then accelerate, right? Like that first elusive move and then accelerate. Kick return, it's accelerate, find the blocking, and just keep accelerating.
Correct. Yes. And that is maybe a little less daunting than what it was. We were trying to compare like what Hank Beatty's next level, like who he is in the NFL. And he feels very much like if Bill Belichick were still coaching the Patriots, that he would be in a New England camp. Did we land on, in fact, Danny Amendola?
It's decent comp.
Like comp wise, most of his returning was early.
I mean, we are falling prey to the white receiver thing here. But
I know, but he had the returning, right? Like he was a strong punt returner, especially in St. Louis. Strong kick returner, especially in St. Louis. I don't know. That's a comp that I enjoy. But I to your point, the larger point, in the NFL, you want a guy. If you're going to have someone who is primarily a returner, you would like them to be both punting and kick, right? Like just from a roster construction standpoint. And that is Hank Beatty's immediate path to the NFL is as a returner. So I do like the idea of giving him both, but to our larger point, probably doesn't matter all that much. If Illinois returned, say 20, that feel about right? 14 last year, 25 in 2023. Does 20 feel about right?
Yeah, because I want to make this point too. The other thing we don't talk enough about this, and sorry to the long snappers, Lane Hansen seems pretty good at his job. Patrick Mahoney is the heir apparent there. So shout out, Mr. Long Snappers. If we don't know you, that's a good thing. But their special teams should be getting better, and I think it has coverage-wise, Joey, return-wise, because the depth of this roster is really, really improving. So Mac Rasetich, Tanner Heckel are special teams studs. Luke Zardzin is a very good one. James Kreutz, Malachi Hood, Kenena Odaluga. These guys all make huge impacts on special teams, and so does Tanner Arkin. So having some other guys that can play tight end that allow Tanner Arkin to play special teams and get a breather before he goes out on offense could be really, really important. But just that depth you're accruing. Support Kareem is really good on special teams. Those positions especially, like they're getting pretty strong, and I think we're starting to see that on their special teams units because they've been pretty sound outside of the actual just punting the football.
Yeah, that's something that Robbie Disher, he's a good special teams coordinator. I mean, I know when he got hired, a lot of it was like, they block all these kicks, and Johnny Newton blocked all those kicks, right? But I think in terms of coverage unit, it's not always sexy. But if you're not giving up a ton of returns on the other end, that is good news. And special teams has been good. They do a good job of maximizing that. Like Ryan Mead was awesome on special teams. Luke Zardzin has been really, really good on special teams.
Heckel became a stud last year on special teams too. Jaheim Clark has been good on special teams. That's why we bring up some of these freshmen. Like a Taiwan Cox makes a lot of sense to put on a special teams unit. I'm wondering if Braden Trimble is a guy we talk about on special teams.
Yeah, Illinois averaged 13.26 yards per punt return. Opponents against Illinois, 9.67. Illinois averaged 19.43 yards on kick return. Opponents, 15.53. Hidden yards, right? Like that's Jay Lehman's deal is hidden yards. And that is where some of those kind of lie. And as we talked about with just simply catching the punt. Yeah, don't overlook that. And the guys that they use, like it's valuable to give younger guys a role.
Yeah.
On that, right? Like I know it doesn't always move the needle in terms of you're going down the participation chart and it's not offensive snaps, it's not defensive snaps, but having an ownership role in that phase of the game is meaningful. It's why you see them not redshirt certain guys to have them to have a spot that's theirs.
Can I mention one more guy who's going to be special team star? And he made some plays last year because we heard his name a couple of times. Ben Clausen, another guy we got to mention for this group. Aaron Henry keeps mentioning him for defense. I don't think you're going to go that deep at safety to get to Ben Clausen. If you do, that's probably not a great thing, but special teams, he's been a key contributor there. And Robbie Disher's been really good. I think he does bring some good schemes here. The one thing he does mention about Crimmins too is the ability to kind of rugby punt it to buy you some time with that punt return. He's good going to both sides. So, some of those guys are really, really good at that. Blake Hayes, we saw that do it a lot. Blake didn't have the hang time that Keelan Crimmins brought to the punting position either. So, anything else we got to hit on with special teams here, Joey?
We just got through a whole discussion of special teams, and we did not mention Tanner Arkin against Michigan.
That was a good play. Good play.
That's always really all. I mean, just real quick, just one more about the coverage grades. Mac Resetich, 3 special teams tackles. Odaluga 3, Ryan Mead 3, Tanner Heckel 2, CJ Buffkin 2, Lane Hansen 2. Just guys who just they add up, right? And those plays do add up over the course of a season.
I mean, it's 15 to 20% of the game is special teams, and I think going into this year, Illinois is going to have an advantage over most teams in special teams. So we talk about these close victories. Special teams always comes up in these games, and I feel like in the Brett Bielema era, more often than not, outside of Northwestern in 2023, it has come out pretty well. Purdue game 2022, the Purdue game, right? Or was it 23? 23, the Purdue game. 23 special teams is a little bit of a mess. But otherwise,
that was in West Lafayette, right? 23. Yeah, that was not great. Hey, just real quick, couple names to mention. We mentioned Lucas Oseda, backup kicker, as near as we can tell. He has punting ability, but he, by all what we've seen, is a backup kicker. Lars Rao.
Do it to it, Lars.
Great name. Backup punter. Just to have those out there in case that comes up. Ideally for Illinois, it would not, because Keelan Crimmins and David Olano are really good at what they do. But those are 2 portal additions that Illinois added.
I want to ask Lars if he's ever said, "I'm feeling skinny, Tony." Some people that watch movies know what I meant there.
What movie?
Heavyweights. It is a 1990s kids classic, Joey. You need to go watch it. I think you'd really enjoy it.
I'm good.
You should.
It's like I could watch a 1990s kids like classic, as you've described, or play video games.
I'd rather watch Ben Stiller play the role that eventually sets him up for one of his most iconic roles. You've seen Dodgeball and White Goodman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal character by Ben Stiller.
Jimmy, I'm not watching this movie.
You don't get that character without Tony Perkis and Heavyweights. So, yeah, you should give it some due, Joey. And whenever the kids start running around the Wagner household, it's got to be one you watch.
Play the like, comment, subscribe button.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get your podcast. If you're on the YouTube channel, thank you. Hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell as well. We got plenty more content coming up at IlliniInquirer.com. We got some hoop stuff up there now. Joey's got a great feature coming up on Cole Rusk and Luke Altmaier. I caught up with Hudson Clement. So we got plenty more, all these freshman focus stories we've been going through. Got plenty more of that coming up. So if you're not a VIP member, sign up now, 50% off, more than $60 of savings. We'll have you covered leading up into the Illinois football season. So for Joey Wagner, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time on the Illini Inquirer podcast.